Welcome back to the pop culture discussion. I am your host Robert, and I just wrapped up reading my way through all 25 volumes of Invincible, and I can honestly say it is without a doubt the best comic book series I have ever read. With all the wonderful, exciting, and shocking comic books available out there, what excels Invincible to the #1 spot? Well, let me explain that with the top 10 reasons why Invincible is the greatest comic of all time. Also, I'll be keeping the descriptions of the storytelling and the character arcs as vivid and basic as I can.
He's got a nose and some hair that goes like that, and he was wearing a hat at the time of this particular crime.
As to not spoil this series for anyone planning on checking it out. Reason number 1, one man's vision. First off, Invincible is all written by one man, Robert Kirkman. And in being the sole writer of the series, and the fact that Invincible isn't as popular as anything out of the big companies like Marvel or DC, Kirkman has the advantage and the freedom to do whatever he wants with his characters and the storytelling of Invincible. Kirkman isn't restricted by ideas or arcs that clash with other writers, and he doesn't have to keep certain characters alive because they are popular or fan favorites, unlike characters like Spider-Man or Batman, who can't be dramatically changed or killed off because they are too popular, or if they are killed off, then another writer has to think of a crazy way to bring them back, which just destroys any level of legitimate stakes these characters have. Now, I'm not saying Marvel and DC suck. I love Spider-Man, he's literally my favorite superhero of all time. I'm just using them as an example. And I'm just saying that the stakes in Invincible are always high because they're always permanent. Dramatically shocking things happen to all these characters, and as the reader, you feel the heavy emotion that comes with that, and it always hits hard because of Kirkman's writing.
Emotional damage!
Reason number 2, the striking visuals. Although Invincible was written by one man, the art on display was provided by a handful of artists. Don't get me wrong, the first few issues of Invincible are honestly pretty rough when it comes to the art, but as Invincible continued to become more popular and successful, the budgets increased and more money were put into the art and the striking visuals, making them more impressive and entertaining with each issue. New artists came on board with a crazy amount of talent, drawing up some of the most impressive character models and battle sequences I've ever seen in a comic. As long as you can handle the gore, you're absolutely in for a treat with all these epic visuals on display, especially in the last 3/4 of the series. Reason number 3, the brilliantly relatable heroes. The main characters in Invincible are all extremely well developed and either relatable or sympathetic, which is crazy considering this is a multiverse scale superhero story. Being able to relate to Superman tier characters on an emotional basis due to how personal and realistic the writing gets honestly keeps the writing so much more engaging and enjoyable. The main character himself, Mark Grayson, not only undergoes significant growth, evolving from a teenager discovering his powers to a seasoned superhero, but side characters have so much time spent on them as well. Although they might not be flushed out to the level of Mark himself, so much of the storytelling is dedicated to a lot of these side characters due to the massive list of characters in the series. As amazing as these characters are, every single character, have it be the heroes or the villains, are also flawed in one way or another. Not a single character is perfect, and that makes them way more realistic and relatable. Characters make mistakes, and these decisions either break a relationship or get people killed. Not only do these arcs change the characters moving forward, but the trauma they now live with affects them in thought-provoking ways. Reason number 4, the shockingly sympathetic villains. Speaking of fleshing characters out, we all know a hero is only as good as his villain, and the villains in Invincible are written so intelligently that you genuinely sympathize with them, even though you know they are evil. Invincible himself even stops to talk to these villains as much as he brawls with them, because even he knows they might be making a good point. They're just suffering with the execution.
It is a masterpiece, James. Complete, comprehensive. It captures the African American experience.
He's out of line, but he's right.
When a conversation between two opposing sides is as entertaining as the brutal brawl they could be having, you know you've got some top tier writing in your hands. Almost all the villains in Invincible actually see themselves as the hero with an agenda to do what they think is right. They see Invincible as the villain trying to stop them. Seeing a character you know is wrong, but is actually making really good points, makes you think. And that leads me into my next point. Reason number 5, the fresh and unpredictable take on the superhero genre. Having characters written so compellingly complex but shockingly understandable subverts all expectations and constantly makes for some of the most unpredictable and escalating storytelling I've ever read. As much as Kirkman likes to follow the standard superhero tropes, they definitely fall to the background, with Kirkman's shockingly smart, fresh takes always front and center. Not only do stories constantly head in directions and conclusions the reader wildly unexpected, but arcs loop back around with returning references and characters from previous volumes at the most random times, making for multiple chaotic and intense sequences happening either all at once or back to back. Reason number 6, the multiple uses of tones and genres. Invincible addresses complex and mature themes such as morality, identity, and the consequences of power, appealing to all ages of readers looking for depth in superhero narratives. Despite its often dark themes, the series balances this with humor and heartfelt moments, making the characters and their relationships more endearing. Although the superhero genre is at the main core of Invincible, action, drama, romance, comedy, sci-fi, fantasy, and horror are all constantly covered in the ever-changing storytelling and tone of the series. The realistic character chemistry excels the drama, and the expansive world-building crafts the science fiction and fantasy aesthetics. And the day-to-day earthly antics of Mark Grayson and his relationships build the romance and the comedy. The constantly chaotic fights craft the action, with high-powered strikes causing shocking sequences of body horror. Reason number 7, the complex and compelling world building. Invincible eases readers into what originally feels like a grounded and simple superhero premise that teases a universe of potential, but quickly expands into that universe, bringing those stories and characters front and center much faster than expected. Invincible creates a rich, expansive universe with diverse characters and intricate lore, providing a backdrop that enhances the main story. Characters, planets, and timelines are constantly switching up the main focus, expanding the world building and escalating the storytelling. Speaking of escalating, reason number 8, the escalating stakes. As mentioned already, Invincible features intense sequences with real stakes. Characters are not immune to harm or death, which adds a huge level of stress, unpredictability, and suspense. Speaking of character deaths, as much as they suck, especially if they're a fan favorite, every single death in Invincible happens for a reason. That reason being to move other main characters forward. So many characters wouldn't move forward in the direction they do in the storytelling if it wasn't for another character's death, now pushing them to that outcome. Giving a character's death purpose completely stops it from just being pure shock value or a waste of that character's potential. As upsetting as these deaths are, the satisfying conclusions that come out of them actually makes them worth it. And I'm saying this as someone whose favorite character was killed off, so I understand the sacrifice in the saving grace on moving the storytelling forward. The stakes do an amazing job at escalating at a breakneck speed, especially in the second half of the series. Not only does the writing switch from the villain of the week cliches to world-ending catastrophes, but a lot of these threats happen either back to back or at the same time, giving the heroes little to no time to recover between battles. And the heroes also lose more times than expected, with this looping back around with how brilliant the villains are. Don't get me wrong, the heroes win most of the time, but it's always at a cost of collateral damage or the death of side characters. Every battle is important and impactful with real stakes, shocking aftermaths, and a complete lack of plot armor for major characters, which leads me into my next point, reason number 9, the epically memorable action. The characters in Invincible not only have some of the most overpowered abilities in fiction, but the wide variety of powers and battle strategies on display make for some of the best superhero action ever put into a comic book series. Super strength especially is shown in some of the most realistic ways, with panels dedicated to the destruction and death of collateral damage caused by multiple beings throwing punches that could level buildings in seconds. Characters also spend multiple issues strategizing on how to kill characters that seem impossible to defeat, and when push comes to shove, characters fight dirty, deadly, and use any advantage they can to get the results they require. The power sets on display do a perfect job at evening out the fights, with every character having a weakness they must overcome to win a fight. Main characters are constantly injured within an inch of their life and can take multiple pages to recover, giving the reader time to spend with other characters within the Invincible universe. I got literal chills from certain panels that hit me so hard with pure excitement and constant WTF moments within the action. Don't get me wrong, I love a great comic book action scene, but nothing has gotten me to this level of investment quite like Invincible did. And last but not least, reason number 10, the super satisfying ending. Everybody knows a story is as good as its ending, and if you can't land the finale, that's all people are going to remember. Luckily, with Invincible being the single vision of Robert Kirkman, he was able to write and wrap up these characters exactly how he intended from the beginning. Not only does the ending feature multiple time jumps, so we get to see where characters end up later on in life, but the final page literally loops back around to the main character's first big brawl in the comic, turning what was originally a devastating scene into a wholesome one. Invincible is not only worth your time, but it is easily one of the best pieces of fiction you could read. If you can get your hands on the hard or digital copies, I cannot recommend this series enough. Now, I am not sponsored by this app at all, but I read all of Invincible on Global Comics. That's with an X, not a C at the end. It's a monthly subscription comics app, and if you want to check Invincible out, that is definitely one way to do so. Now, if you love Invincible, feel free to smash that subscribe button. I have a handful of Invincible videos coming soon, and if you want to see me talk more about Invincible, that's definitely the easiest way to do so, and I will see you all in my next video.